Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei found out the truth of his reincarnation and becomes Crimson Crescent Dragon. Before we start, please go support Helix Asmodeus for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Dark Truth. Abandoned Church. It was a clear night in a small town called Kuo. A half moon was on the night sky that was filled with stars of every imaginable size. The people of this small town were slowly preparing to go to sleep or somewhere already in the lands of the dreams, dreaming about extraordinary wishes that they wanted or something else. Though most of Kuo was preparing or was already in bed, on the small hilltop that was dominating the surroundings was a small, abandoned church. And in that little place, a huge battle was currently underway. A battle that was going to change everyone's lives forever. Even after you've boosted up, you are still a bucking weakling, hahaha. A mature voice echoed as a laugh was heard all through the church as the two figures faced each other in a battle to the death. The mature voice belonged to an unraveled beauty that had long dark hair that went all the way down to the lower back, while her normally beautiful and gentle face was distorted into a hideous, ugly and smug setup, with her prominent feature being her purple eyes that shined with absolute malice and disgust towards her opponent that she impaled trough legs. Her body was that of a supermodel with huge racks that on a first look someone thought they were fake. Her well-toned and perfect stomach along with her long legs made her look like a real porn star girl. And her outfit was only adding to that look as it was all in straps that only barely cover her sacred parts. But even with that, it was extremely hard for male or even female to keep her eyes on her deep purple color eyes as her huge boobs would jump up and down with even the littlest of movements. Even her breathing in the air was complemented with her bouncing front. Her rear was like it was made by the best artist in sculpturing. It was made to look at a firm, but as she demonstrated a few times was very elastic. All in all, she was the definition of otherworldly beauty. Which was proven by a pair of wings black feather that were coming out of her back. Almost giving her the angel look, but it was clear that if she was at any point a real angel had fallen. Opposite of her was a young teen that had brown almost chocolate color hair that was tied in a small ponytail and chocolate color eyes. He was dressed in a school uniform and to the average eyes, he looked perfectly normal. Well, normal as someone can be with a red gauntlet that looked like a dragon claw for an arm and a pair of black leather wings that spurred from the teen's back. Though this where the two opponents would clash for the last time. Well, that was what she thought as she readied her new light spear that was lush purple in color just like her eyes. Well, it was a blast, but you bore me, go to hell, and stay there you worthless human filth. The mature fallen angel spoke, her tone sipping over the edge of beyond cruelty and malice, but before she could deliver the final blow to her enemy, it was already too late. The stabbed teen shouted his war cry as soon as he saw her spear and charged at her with fury. Ignoring the hellish pain that was coursing through his body. His adrenaline at an all-time high, his rage at its peak, and the overwhelming power that his gear has supplied him was the cherry on top for him to neutralize the distance separating them in almost a blink of a time. You filth, let go of me, the fallen shrieked in disgust as she swung her spear a few times, trying to free herself only to her horror to see her spear getting destroyed by a well-placed hit from an armored claw. Only for her to quickly flap her wings trying to force him to let go of her as she lifted off the ground. You are mine, you bitch, take this, the teen roared in like a dragon as he swung his armored hand once more. The connection was made and the fallen coughed and gasped as she was hit. The hit was so strong that she felt like she was hit by a tank and not by a filthy human. And to add to her fury, she was flung outside of a church through the wall that fell on top of her, making her lose fainted. Fucking bitch, the teen muttered in exhaustion as his legs give way, his adrenaline and power up wearing off, making him cringe as he saw the floor welcoming his face to a painful landing. Though before he could be more intimate with the cold stone floor, his body was stopped with a pair of arms around his torso keeping him up. And it did not take much for a teen to know who saved him from his date with Stone. You're a bit late, Casanova spoke in a tone that was mixed with anger and exhaustion. Well, President said not to interfere, so I stood back and observe. The voice of a male was heard making the brown-haired teen groan before something came to his attention, but he quickly put it aside. Well, Issei, I must say you really did a number on her. And you are a devil for just a week or so. Your growth is astonishing. The male that supported the teen spoke again with admiration in his tone. It sounds to me that Issei spoke again, but he bit his tongue as he saw the rest of his group entering the room where the battle was held. The group that entered consisted of 3 girls. The first one was a beautiful girl around the late teens with long crimson red hair that was slowly wavering in the calm breeze that was made by the hole in the wall. Her baby blue eyes and her lush lips were tempting, but her biggest feature was her assets, mostly her huge bust that was easily her best feature. And with how they moved freely, it was easy to figure that she did not wear a bra under her school uniform that she wore along with black shoes. That girl was Ria's Gremory, a high-class devil that was also a leader of the group. Well, it would be more correct to say master, but we will leave it at that for a moment. She was followed by a busty black-haired teen with violet color eyes her age that was in beauty and assets her match easily. Hell, even having a bit larger breast than Ria's herself, which was as unbelievable as it sounded, but she did indeed possess a larger rack, which she proudly showed it. She was dressed in Japanese priest style of clothes. Though he knew better than to trust her smile, as he quickly learned that she was both SM, and that both scared and excited him. The girl was also Ria's second in command, so it stands to believe that she was immensely powerful as well as beautiful. The name of that Maiko beauty is Akeno Himejima. Though the last was a small flat-as-board girl with short white bobcat hair and golden almost cat-like eyes. Her outfit was the same as Issei's and Ria's as in school. She was someone Issei would admit was the most honest with her thought of him, and he was grateful for that at least. Though that didn't mean that he liked her or vice versa, it was more, he was afraid of her and her monster strength that she possessed, even if she was younger and shorter than him by a lot. The little pint-sized bulldozer, as Issei named her in his mind, was Kaneko Taoju. And for the boy from before that saved Issei from his love affair with the ground is Kibayudo. He is a short-haired blonde boy with bluish-gray color eyes. He was like the rest dressed in a male version of school uniform while having a sword strapped to his hip that was in its shelter. And what crept Issei was the smile that Kiba had on his face. It was well in Issei's opinion geish. Well, I am extremely impressed with my adorable pawn. You managed to defeat an opponent that had more battle experience and power. You are truly a unique catch. Ria said with a huge smile on her face as she saw that her pawn was alive and even managed to beat the fallen angel that was beyond doubt stronger than him. Though she could clearly see that her piece did not get away without a scratch, but that was to be expected. Ufufufu Issei, you are truly a monster. Ufufufu, I wonder, are you a monster in other areas? Akeno questioned as she licked her lips in a hexual way that Issei felt his boner rise in an instant, though it quickly went down when he heard moaning and Kaneko's emotionless voice. Here she is, President, the midget said in her emotionless tone that made Issei really think that she was half machine. But he put that aside to focus on a fallen that was ceremonially thrown towards them. Very nice work, Kaneko, and of course you as well, Issei. I was having only a bit of doubt in your power, but it looks like it was misplaced. The Redeed said in a regal tone that showed her superiority, though that tone also irked something inside Issei that he was not 100% sure why, but he ignores it for now. Thanks, President. But buck me, those light spears hurt like a bitch. Issei cringed as the pain again assaulted his body, making him bite his though so as not to let a scream. Which made Akeno lick her lips as a small blush came over her beautiful face. Though even with it everyone present could clearly see his pain, but they put it aside for now as they needed to get rid of a little crow firstly. It was making Issei slowly start question things that happened. He was not as stupid as some would think, he was just lazy to think sometimes, but seeing how everyone was more focused on a damn crow than their injured teammate, it set an alarm in his head. Akeno, be a dear and wake up our sleeping guests. Rias calmly said, making the black-haired priestess smile. At once Akeno replied, and before Issei could blink a huge torrent of water hit the fallen woman, making her shriek from the sudden coldness. Oh, you are finally awake, I see. Rias commented as she walked slowly towards the now awakened fallen, who looked around to see what was happening, only to quickly realize that she was surrounded by devils. Well, introductions are in order. I'm Rias Gremory, the heiress of the Gremory clan, and these are my adorable servants. You already know my pawn, the others are my queen Akeno, Rook Kaneko, and the knight Kiba. Not that was necessary because you are not going to live for long, Raynare. Yes, I know your name well. Rias continued to talk as she pointed to everyone present, shocking the already shocked Raynare more. Gremory, you think you won just because you're here with your servants? There are other fallen angels here with me. They will soon come to hell. Raynare spoke with a bit of fury to try and hide her fear, though it didn't last long. They won't come to help you, because my queen and I finished them off before coming here. I think you can recognize these feathers. You fallen can't see the difference in them from who they are, can't you? Rias stopped Raynare in mid-sentence, making her gasp at what she saw. Terror overtook Raynare as she saw feathers of her fallen comrades and allies Kalwarner, Dinasak and Middled in the hands of crimson-haired Princess of Destruction. Now she knew that she was all alone, and the damage she took from the pervert was too much for her to even move, let alone fight. So, when muscles won't win, she started to rack her brain for a way out. You want to know why you lost to this boy, fallen angel Raynare? Asked Rias as she looks in the purple eyes of the shaking Raynare. The answer to that is amazingly simple. His sacred gear is not a twice critical. It's the booster gear, the gauntlet of the Red Dragon of Domination, Akka the Red Dragon Emperor. Explained Rias with a proud and smug look on her face as Raynare stared at her before her eyes turned to Issei in pure disbelief. What? You are saying that the legendary gear is in this dork and perv? Raynare for the life of her could not imagine how and why. Though then was something that clicked in her mind, a crucial piece of information that she knew was a lifesaver. So that is a reason. Raynare slowly spoke before she started to chuckle a bit at how this devil's operation was planned. Which she needed to give them credit, it was very well planned. You said something, fallen. Issei questioned in a bit. Yeah, cough, I do, tell me, Ice, did a cough ever cross your mind? How did you become devil? Raynare spoke between coughs as her lungs were no doubt pierced by her ribcage. That was a present from Issei to her. Though that question started something in his mind. How did he become a devil? He was sure as hell that he was not superstitious or that he believed in good. Well, technically he did, though since he is Japanese he is of a different religion, but that was beside the point. What do you mean? Issei questioned, not noticing the others flinch at the question that Raynare asked. Well, cough, how come did that red-haired bitch cough knew you were with me and you are dead? The black-haired fallen angel asked with a vicious smirk on her face, as Issei's eyes widened in surprise at first, before his brain registered what Raynare asked. And that made his surprised eyes to narrow so much that it looked as if he closed them, though what Raynare saw made her pale more than the thought of death at the hands of the red-haired teen. While Riaz and others gasped at what they heard and moved to finish off Raynare, they were in shock when they felt Issei's power suddenly erupted in a maelstrom of crimson, red and black vortex. Only Raynare could see Issei's eyes, and what she saw was something she never imagined seeing. The normal chocolate brown eyes were replaced with a beautiful crimson red, but the pupil of the eyes were changed into a slit like lizard eyes. The normal eye white of the former human eyes changed into demonic black, giving him a pure menacing appearance. Everyone took a step back with Raynare trying desperately to escape, but the glare of Issei made her frozen in place. The other devils didn't know what to do. They felt suddenly so powerless, like they awakened a beast that is about to be released from its cage. While the powerful black and red aura that surrounded Issei started to have sparks in them. The sparks grew larger and stronger to the point it became like thunderbolts. Riaz, feeling the power that was released from Issei, tried to walk up to him, but it was proven useless when the moment she tried to get closer a bolt of black lighting fired straight at Riaz, who was caught by surprise and was sent flying across the church and flew straight out of the door. The other were shocked. Kiba created a sword and charged at Issei, who remained silent, but his eyes were still watching the crow that ruined his life. Kiba closed the distance between him and Issei and was about to attack him with his sword. Boost, the sound of the red gauntlet on Issei's left hand roared, making Kiba confused at what he heard. Kiba was suddenly met with an immense pain in his stomach. Looking downwards, he saw Issei's right hand caved into his gut. He coughed up some blood and looked up, and the glaring eyes of Issei. Kiba had to admit he felt terrified at what he saw in those eyes. The pure hate, anger, betrayal and fury laying within them, making the Knight of Gremory regret he ever crossed path with the monster. But it didn't end there. Kiba suddenly felt an intense pain course through his body. But before he could scream, Issei used his left hand and punched straight in the face, sending him flying through the doors of the church in the same direction his master was sent. The other two devils were planning on what to do. Akeno flew in the air and prepared to electrocute Issei. Haneko helped the others. I will try to distract slam crash. Akeno wasn't able to finish her sentence because Issei flew up to her and delivered a swift kick to her head, sending her crashing into the wall. Haneko looked shocked at the sudden speed of Issei. She looked back at the pawn, but to her surprise was what was on his back. Two midnight black scaled wings with a hint of red were on his back. They weren't his devil wings. The wings that Issei had were way more beautiful and magnificent. Issei looked at the white-haired lowly with a predatory gaze, making the underclassmen shiver. Leave. Issei said with a surprisingly calm voice. The white-haired devil was shocked at what he said, but didn't need to be told twice and ran out of the church. Issei looked back at the fallen angel. He descended back to the ground and slowly walked up to her body. The vertex of power surrounded Issei started to grow. His black-scaled wings looked more majestic and intimidating. His crimson-red eyes looked at the fallen angel like his next prey ready to be devoured. The fallen angel looked at the monster that was in front of her and shivered in fear. What are you gonna do with me? Raynare asks with obvious fear in her voice. I will make you pay. Issei answered in a deep and menacing demonic voice. Chapter 2. Action. Unknown area. A tall handsome man wearing a black coat with a long mixture of black and blonde hairs, as well as heterochromatic eyes, was walking in a wasteland alone. His right eye was gold and his left eye was black and he has pointed ears. The man was walking through the wasteland, but behind him were countless amount of bodies of demons and monster laying dead on the ground. The man looked around and sighed. He was yearning for a good battle, but unfortunately none of those demons were able to give him what he wanted. What a waste of my time. The man mentally said to himself, but his thoughts were disrupted when he sensed a powerful aura being unsealed. His eyes widened when he recognized the aura. Issei? He asks out loud. He immediately went into action and unfolded his wings. The wings were pure midnight black scaled wings. The wings were majestic and intimidating, making him look like some type of god of supreme being. The man flew in the air with blinding speed while having one thought in his mind. I am coming, son. Unknown castle. In a castle in the middle of nowhere, a beautiful woman with snow white hair and crimson red eyes was laying on her back. What is most surprising is that she completely naked with two black and red bat-like wings and a black tail with an arrow tip on it coming from her lower back. She had two large horns on each side of her head, giving her a more demonic appearance. The woman was staring aimlessly at the ceiling of her castle. How boring, there's nothing to do. The woman whispered to herself and closed her eyes trying to get some sleep. But her eyes were forced to open when she sensed a powerful aura spike. She sat up from her bed with a shocked expression. This aura was something she never felt before. It felt so powerful, raw, dense and primal. It made the woman blush when she felt the power growing wider. "Oh my Satan, what is that power?" she said out loud with shiver, sensing the power. She quickly snapped her fingers and her naked form changed into a revealing black and red outfit. She walked up to the window and opened it. She jumped out of the window and flew into the air. There was one thought in her mind when she was flying towards the direction of the pillar of power. "I need to find him, I need to find that power and make him my master," and with that the woman flew with high speed at the direction of the tsunami of power. Abandoned church. Issei was standing in front of the fallen angel called Raynare. The fallen angels that ruined his life. He was glaring at her. Pure anger and malice were flaring in his now crimson red eyes. The fallen angel was laying on the ground in pain and fear on what this monster will do to her. She never was so scared in her life. The boy in front of her was supposed to be useless pervert who was lucky to get a sacred gear. But that boy was no more, and what was in front of her was none other than the vessel of the dragon of domination. The true might of the Red Dragon Emperor was standing in front of her. Towering her like a predator is stalking its prey. Issei's red eyes looked at the fallen, thinking on what to do. He wanted to kill her, but that would be the most merciful thing he could think of. No, he wanted to make her suffer. Make her pay for what she has done. Then Issei's attention shifted towards her wings. Those disgusting black feathered wings that haunts his memories. An evil grin slowly made its way on Issei's face and he started to walk to the weakened fallen angel. The fallen tried to crawl away but was stopped when Issei grabbed her by the leg and swiftly swung her around like a baseball bat, making her crash face first at the podium behind her. Crash. The sound of the crow crashing into the wall was heard. Issei looked at the fallen angel who started to move and try to stand up. She turned around with tears in her eyes. She knew messed up big time and prayed to her creator for mercy. Please have mercy, why, the fallen angel said while sobbing, but Issei didn't care. He walked up to the downed fallen angel and grabbed both of her wings. Raynare's eyes widened when she felt Issei's hands grab on her wings and her eyes started to widen in horror when she felt a very painful sting on her back. Raynare screamed in agony when she felt her own wings being pulled apart from her body. Please stop. Ignored the scream from the fallen angel and continued pulling on her wings and slowly the wings were ripped from her body, making the fallen angel scream and cry in pain. Issei had both ripped or wings in his hands and looked them with disgust. He threw the wings away and looked at the crying fallen. Not feeling any sympathy or remorse at what he has done, Issei grabbed the fallen angel by her hair, making her look at him with tears in her eyes. Please mercy. She begged with the last of her strength. Issei's eyes narrowed at the crying fallen angel and let go of her hair, making her drop on her knees. She looked up and saw his glaring eyes. Issei slowly opened his mouth and his demonic voice was heard. I will let you live, but if I even see you again I will finish what I started, understood? Issei's demonic voice spoke, making the fallen angel and thank whoever was listening and tried to stand up on her knees and ran out of the church. Issei's eyes soon went to his deceased friend's body who was still laying on the seat. Issei walked up to her dead body and picked her up in his arms. I am sorry friend that I couldn't protect you. But I will make sure that no one will try and take advantage of you ever again. Issei said while tears started to drip down from his face on Asia's peaceful face. Issei, who still had his new black wings out, started to hover in the air and slowly started to fly out of the church window and fly in the night sky. 30 minutes later, Issei was still flying in the night sky. Not having a destination in mind. Issei didn't know where to go or what to do. He just wanted to make sure that no one will find Asia's body. After half an hour of aimlessly flying, Issei started to grow tired and descended to the ground by a cave. Issei landed in front of the cave and retracted his wings. Issei walked into the cave with Asia's body in his hands. Issei's devil vision allowed his to see through the dark cave. Issei suddenly stopped when he heard the sound of somebody else landing on the ground. The green gem on Issei's left hand, who still had the boosted gear on, started to shine. Issei's body started to shake. Issei saw the figure go landed in front of the cave coming closer. A silhouette of a tall man came into his vision. Who are you? Issei asks in his demonic voice, but inwardly he was scared. His body was screaming at him to run away. Even the sacred gear is hinting not to mess with the guy in front of him. Me? You don't recognize me? The voice said. The voice sounded like he was in his late 20s. The silhouette became more clear and Issei could see a handsome man in his 20s with both black and golden hair. His eyes were heterochromic. His right eye was gold and his left eye was black. He had pointy ears and wore a black coat. Answer my question, Issei yelled out. his aura flaring a bit, but the man was unfazed at the anger and power from the Red Dragon Emperor. "Why my so much power you have?" the man said while analyzing Issei. The man smirked and looked at Issei with a grin on his face. "They call me Crom Cruach, the Crescent Circle Dragon. But you can call me father," the man said, making Issei shocked at what he just heard. What?" Issei asked, shocked, making the man nod. "Indeed, Issei Haidu. You are my son," the man named Crom Cruach said calmly to his supposed son. Chapter 3. True heritage revealed. Unknown cave. Issei was standing in front of the man that claims to be his father. Issei was shocked beyond reason and almost dropped Asia's corpse from the shock. "That can't be true," Issei asks. His demonic eyes started to return to normal and the anger surrounding him started to lessen. Eventually Issei dropped on his knees, still hiding Asia, making she didn't fall on the ground. The man in front of him looked at his son with pity. He knew why his son was so saddened, and it appears that a good friend of Issei was killed by some supernatural beings. Crom slowly walked up to Issei, who was crying, and went on one knee and placed his hand on Issei's shoulder. Issei slowly raised his head. His eyes was still crimson red, but they at least looked human again. "It is true. Remember your black wings and the black lighting coming from your body. That is because you are my son, you inherit my powers," Crom explained, making Issei think back when he was in the church. Well, he was incredibly angry and was thinking solely on releasing his anger on the ones that misused him. He did remember that he fired a black lightning bolt at Rias that sent her flying through the church. He also saw his wings when he was fighting the rest of the Gremory peerage. They were midnight black scales with a hint of crimson red in them. And Crom didn't see Issei use his black lighting, but he was able to sense it, and he saw Issei landing in front of the cave with his wings out. "So those wings and lighting power I have came from you?" Issei asks. His voice was back into his original human one. Crom nodded and raised his other hand, and sparks of black lighting coursed through his hand, making Issei's eyes widen. "Indeed, but that is not all. But before I tell you everything, should we bury that friend of yours?" Crom asks while pointing at Asia. Issei looked back at her lifeless body and nodded. Crom and Issei buried Asia deep inside of the cave, and to make sure that no one will be able to reincarnate her, Crom covered her body in a special dragon's aura that prevented her soul from ever returning to the land of the living. Now Issei and Crom Cruach were sitting on a bench nearby the cave. There was an awkward silence between them, and neither both parties knew how to break the ice. But eventually Crom got tired of waiting. "So where shall I begin?" Crom asks, making Issei think. He wanted to know everything about him. How much of his life is a lie? He needed to know, or else he couldn't trust anybody again. "By birth," Issei answered, making Crom nod. "Very well, but should we not have all people attending this talk?" Crom asks, making Issei confused. "Who?" Issei asks. Crom didn't answer and simply grabbed Issei's left hand, and sparks of black lighting coursed through Crom and Issei. Both were unaffected by this. When Crom released Issei's hand, the boosted gear who has disappeared when he was burying Asia appeared again, but this time it looked different. It looked more like a crimson-red dragonic gauntlet with claws. "Huh? Who dares awaken me from my slumber?" A deep and powerful voice roared out loud. "It has been a while, Drag," Crom said casually, making the Red Dragon Emperor inside of the boosted gear silent for a second. The dragon soon realized who that man was and his eyes widened. "Crom Cruach," Drag yelled, making Issei hold his head in pain from the insanely loud voice of the legendary dragon. "Yup, that is me alright," Crom said with a grin. It was amusing to hear the famous Red Dragon Emperor scream like a child. "Huh? But why are you here?" Drag asks, making Crom sigh. "I will explain it now. So shut up." He raised his voice a bit, but soon calmed down. "Let's start from the beginning. The day you were born, Issei, your mother Emilia became very sick. So sick in fact that she died only 3 days after your birth. But as her dying wish, she wanted you to experience a normal human life. So she and I sealed all of your powers away and let you live in the human world with the Haidu family and manipulated their minds into thinking that you are their son," Crom explained, making Issei shocked. "So his current parents weren't his biological parents?" "Wait, but who was my mother?" Issei asks, making Crom slime softly. "Her name was Emilia Sparta, a hybrid between demon and human. Because of her human part you were able to obtain the sacred gear," Crom explained, making Issei shocked, but who really was shocked was Drag when he heard the last name of Issei's mother. "Did you just said Sparta? As in the legendary Dark Knight Sparta?" Drag asks in total shock. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Yup, that legendary devil is Issei's great-grandfather," Crom revealed, making the Welsh dragon speechless. Issei was confused at why the dragon inside of him was acting this way and decided to ask. Why is Sparta?" Issei asks his father, who chuckled at his son's ignorance. "Sparta is the name of the legendary devil that single-handed conquered the underworld and overthrew the emperor of the underworld Mundus. He was the strongest devil to have ever lived in his time." Crom revealed, making Issei shocked to the point he was about to pass out. Wait, that means that I was a devil when I was born? Issei asks, making Crom nod. Yeah, your mother was 75% devil and 25% human. Meaning when you were born you were 50% dragon, 37.5% devil and 12.5% human. Crom said, making Issei nod, but this raised another question. Wait, but what happened to my humanity? I was reincarnated into a devil. Issei asks, making Crom glance with him with a serious look. Crom narrowed his eyes and looked at Issei's aura, and indeed, his humanity looked to be gone. What happened to you? Crom asks in a low but dangerous tone. The air around them shifted and became heavier. Issei started to explain the whole way how he became a devil, and let's just say Crom was a little more than pissed. When Issei finished explained, Crom had a black and gold aura surrounding him, and powerful black lighting sparks was coursing through his body. The face of Crom was one of pure anger and malice. The face easily was more terrifying than Issei's. Hell, even Issei was shivering from the insane amount of power coming from his father. That bitch, I will rip her apart, Crom roared in fury. His voice was more demonic, causing the whole area to shake. Issei fell from the bench onto his butt. He was honestly terrified of his father outburst. But luckily the drag had a solution to make the strongest evil dragon calm down. Crom, stop this at once. Do you wish to attract the devils and the Shinto gods? Drag roared from the boosted gear, catching Crom's attention, and indeed the dragon soon calmed down. Sorry for that, Crom said in a low tone. His anger was still clearly present in his voice, and malice and bloodlust could be sensed from him. Issei recovered and sat back on the bench and took a breath out of relief. He was fortunate to have the Welsh dragon calm down his father. Dad, may I ask who my mother was and how she was? Issei asks. Crom looked at Issei, and his face softens. Your mother carried many personality traits as your grandfather Dante, the legendary demon hunter. Cocky, doesn't take many things serious, likes to show off, love for pizza, likes mocking his enemy and much more. That is one of the reasons I fell in love with your mother. She was always truth to herself and will do whatever it takes to protect what was important. Crom said with a soft tone, making Issei smile slightly. It felt good to hear that his mother was such a person. Oh yeah, she was a massive pervert. Crom suddenly said, making Issei eyes widen. No wonder where I got it from. Issei mentally said to himself. Seeing how he is a massive pervert, I see. She sounds like a lovely woman. Issei said, making Crom nod. Crom eyes widened and searched in his pockets for something. When he found it, he took out a note and handed it to Issei. Your mother, final words before she passed. Crom said, making Issei nod and read what was in the letter. If you are reading this, Issei, that means you finally met your dad. I wish I could have seen you grow up and become a badass like me and your grandfather Dante, but unfortunately fate has been a bitch to me and your family. I wanted to say in this letter that I wanted you to live a normal life as a family, but being the son of the strongest evil dragon and great-grandson of the most strongest devil alive, it would without a doubt be very difficult for you to live a normal life. So me and Crom have decided to seal all of your powers, so nobody would be able to find out your true heritage. As you probably found out from Crom Crotch, and that was intended. I am the granddaughter of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta and the daughter of the legendary demon hunter Dante. So our legacy is a very powerful and important one for the supernatural world. Meaning I had to go to extreme measures to make sure that you could not be revealed by some accident. So I used the legendary devil sword Sparta to seal your powers. If you want to unseal your demonic heritage and tap into your baddest devil powers, you need to take that sword along with the rebellion and the Yamato, the sword of your grandfather Dante and his douchebag brother Virgil. And stab yourself with it. I know it sounds insane, but that is the only way for you to unlock your true demonic power and be the super badass you were destined to be. You can find those swords back at the home of your great-grandfather. Ask Cromcrotch to bring you there. But that out of the way, I wish I could be there to see you grow up and live a happy family, along with Cromcrotch. P.S. Please continue to call him that for me. Never forget that I love you, Issei. Your forever-loving badass mother, Amelia Sparta Jackpot. Tears started to fall from Issei's face onto the letter. His mother final words really hit hard. He clutches the letter by his chest. Now he really wished he could have met his mother. She sounds like an awesome woman. She really sounds like a badass. Issei softly whispered. Crom heard it and nodded. Indeed. That was the only thing Crom said. Issei stood up and wiped all the tears away. I think it is time to unseal my true heritage. Issei said with a small smirk, making Crom look at him and his eyes widen. But soon shock turned into a grin and Crom nodded. Then let's go. Crom said with a grin. Chapter 4. Unsealed Power and Training. Abandoned Mansion. Issei and Cromcrotch arrived at what looked to be an abandoned manor. It looked fancy but a bit old. So this is the place where grandfather was born? Issei asks, making Crom nod. Not only was it the birthplace of your grandfather and your great-uncle. Both your mother and yourself were born here. Crom revealed, making Issei eyes widen. Really? Issei asks in shock. Of course Issei didn't know because he started living in the human world when he was about a week old. Crom only nodded and both father and son walked through the gates of the mansion. After a couple of meters of walking, Crom stopped and placed his hand on Issei's shoulder. "What is it, Dad?" Issei said a bit hesitantly. He wasn't used to call someone he met less than an hour ago his father. "Let's go first to the garden." Crom said and continued walking while not waiting for Issei's response. Issei was confused at first, but nonetheless followed his father to the garden. The garden was a massive grass field with a giant tree that had a swing on it. But that wasn't their destination. When they reached what looked to be a graveyard, Issei slowed down his walking and looked around the graveyard. There were 7 tombstones perfectly stating next to each other. Issei looked at the first tombstone and saw the name Sparta on it was a beautiful portrait of a middle-aged man with white hair and hazel-colored eyes. On the tombstone wrote, "Symbol of hope for humans and proud father of 2 sons." Issei smiled softly seeing the picture of his ancestor. He looked at the tombstone next to it and saw the name Eva on it. Like the first one, it showed a portrait of a beautiful young woman around her 20s. She had blonde hair and crimson-red colored eyes. On her tombstone wrote, "Loving and caring mother of 2 children." Issei's smile was still present on his face and small tears started to drip from his face. It felt so weird finding out that you have a family only to discover that most of them are dead. Issei looked again to the left and saw 2 tombstones staring right next to each other. Issei walked over them and saw the names of the tombstones, Dante and Virgil. Those were Issei's grandfather and great-uncle. Issei looked at the portraits and saw 2 adults on it. Both had white hair but different hairstyles and the same hazel-colored eyes. One had short hair barely reaching his shoulders. He had a small smile on his face. The other person had his hair styled backwards. He had a more serious expression on his face. On their tombstone said something that made him chuckle a bit, "Pizza-loving idiot." And "power-hungry idiot." Issei smiled at the portraits of his grandfather and great-uncle. He looked to the side and saw the same picture of his great-grandmother, but this time the name said Trish. This made Issei confused at why there were 2 portraits of the same person. Crom, who was silently standing next to him, saw his confused expression and smiled. "Your grandmaster Trish was a demon created to look like your great-grandmother. The nemesis of Spartamundus tried to defeat Dante by using his own emotion against him." Crom explained, making Issei nod in understanding. On his grandmother portrait said, "Most baddest female demon ever to have lived." Moving to the next tombstone, Issei saw a young man with short white hair and hazel-colored eyes. Like Virgil, he had a serious expression on his face. On it said Nero, but before Issei could respond the boosted gear appeared and Drake spoke out loud. "I remember him. He was the strongest host of my rival the Vanishing Dragon." Drake said, making Issei eyes widen. He learned from the rivalry between the heavenly dragons when he traveling with his father to this location. "How strong was he?" Issei asks the Welsh dragon. "He was powerful, alright. Even without the gear he was a force of nature. He died fighting my strongest host called Belzard Ackerman," Drake revealed, making Issei eyes widen. "I see." Issei said and saw the text on the tombstone and it made him almost laugh out loud. It simply said, "Deadweight." Issei's smile was still visible on his face. Crom was confused at why Issei was laughing and looked at the tombstone and understood the reason why his son was acting this way. Will he be known as the strongest white dragon emperor? His family usually made fun of him by calling him Deadweight. Crom said with light chuckle. Issei nodded and moved to the last tombstone. Issei's eyes widened when he read the name of his mother on it. Amelia. Issei looked at the woman on the portrait and saw a woman of pure beauty. She had pale skin with snow-white hair and beautiful crimson-red colored eyes. Issei smiled softly at the picture of his mother. He wishes he could have met her, but fate had to be a cruel bitch. Crom stood next to Issei while looking at the picture of his dead wife. He looked back at his hand where a black ring with a red gemstone was. It was his wedding ring after he married Amelia. It brought back fond memories of them spending time together. Issei, who was looking at the grave of his mother, silently made a promise to himself. "Mom, I know you don't hear this, but I want to make a promise that I won't ever be manipulated again. I promise you that I will protect the people that are dear to me and do whatever it takes to make them smile. I promise you that, Mom." Issei thought, determined to himself. After a couple of minutes of mourning, Issei and Crom decided to enter the home of the Sparta family. The mansion was old but luxurious. But for Issei it gave warm welcoming feeling. Issei and Crom made it to the living room where the first thing that caught their attention is the massive portrait on the wall. It was an old, but Issei could make out what it was. It was his great-grandparent along with their children. Issei looked around and saw on the 3 swords standing in front of the massive portrait. Issei walked over to the swords with Crom following right behind him. "So are those the demonic swords?" Issei asks while walking, making his way to the swords. There were 3 different types of swords. A massive one-bladed sword looked to have eyes and bones in it, a beautiful katana with a blue highlights, and lastly a dagger that has a skull on it. Indeed, the massive one-bladed sword is Sparta, the katana is Yamato, and the dagger was rebellion, but it shattered many years ago. Crom said and saw Issei picking up the shattered rebellion. Issei had the sword of his grandfather in his hands and knew what he must do. So I have to stab myself with the rebellion to unlock my true demonic powers. Issei asks for clarification. Indeed. But you need to hold on to Sparta and Yamato at the same time. Your mother said something of absorbing the demonic essence of the swords. Crom said, making Issei nod. He was nervous, but he desperately wanted to become stronger. He placed rebellion on the ground and placed his hands on largest demonic sword Sparta. Issei tried to lift it up, but it was too heavy for him to lift it. Damn, this thing is heavy, Issei said while trying to lift the massive sword from the ground. Crom looked amused at his son's failed attempt and decided to help him. Crom swiftly lifted the massive sword and impaled it in the ground. Here, this should help. He said and saw the pout on Issei's face. The reason you weren't able to wield that sword is the lack of demonic energy in your body. Without it you won't be able to lift the sword. Crom said, making Issei nod. Issei moved on to the Yamato and picked it up from the ground. Issei looked at the katana and his admit that it was a beautiful piece of art. He looked back at Crom and saw him nod. Issei picked up the shattered rebellion from the ground and looked again at the massive portrait. He gave one final smirk and turned the rebellion around and impaled himself in the gut. Stab. Issei took a step back while trying to stand up. He still held on the Yamato and quickly placed his free hand back on the rebellion which was impaled in his gut. Pushed it deeper. After shoving the rebellion deeper in his gut, he placed his hand on the Sparta. Issei felt a warm wave of energy course through his body and closed his eyes. Crom saw that the rebellion was absorbed in Issei's body and the Yamato and Sparta were doing the same. A powerful black and red aura swirled around Issei and it started to cover Issei's body. The last thing he heard was a powerful roar from Issei. Issei demonic voice roared loudly and a powerful demonic aura exploded, catching even Crom by surprise and had to embrace himself for the explosion of power. When the explosion ended, Crom looked back at the direction of Issei and saw what he can only describe a true devil. Crom looked at Issei with a proud grin and was impressed that he already released such amount of power. Issei in his true devil form looked around and pretty much felt different. He slowly floated from the floor and spreaded his wings. He had 4 devil wings with strange patterns on them. Issei slowly raised his right hand and a red blackish aura surrounded it. Soon after, a black and red double-bladed sword appeared. Issei looked at his new sword with awe but suddenly felt his body in pain and his devil form was deactivated. Issei landed on the floor panting. He still had the sword in his hands. One thing that was definitely has changed, that his normal chocolate brown hair changed pure white. Crom, who was shocked at first but helped Issei back on his feet. It took a minute but Issei was able to get on his feet and started talking again. So I guess it was a success. Issei said while being recovered from what just happened. Indeed. The seal placed on your body is gone, meaning you were just how you were born, except that your human side is now gone. Crom said, making Issei nod. He understood that thanks to the reincarnation as a devil, his last part of his humanity was stolen from him. But before Issei could talk further, the boosted Jeet suddenly appeared and Drake started talking. Hey partner, I need to tell you something. Drake said, catching both Issei's and Crom's attention. What is it, Drake? Issei asks the Welsh dragon. I think you should know is that you didn't only absorb the demonic essence of all the 3 demonic swords, but as well the demonic essence inside your evil pieces. Drake said, making Issei confused, but Crom Cruich understood what the Welsh dragon was saying, but suddenly his eyes widened when he thought what could have happened. Wait, are you telling me that Issei have access to that? Crom said, making Issei more confused. What? Issei asks, making his father look at him in the eyes. Issei, I need you to image a sphere of destructive demonic energy. Crom ordered, making Issei confused, but seeing his serious expression, Issei complied and closed his eyes and raised his right hand. Issei imaged exactly what they asked of him and moments later he felt something on his right hand. He heard a gasp of his father and opened his eyes and saw a black and red sphere of energy floating right above his hand. Issei looked a bit confused and looked at his father, who had the biggest grin on his face. What is this, Dad? Issei asks while playing around with the sphere in his hands. That my son is the power of destruction, the same power of your so-called master. Crom answered, making Issei shocked. Wait, but how was I able to get this power? Issei asks, but Drake answered this time. It happened when you absorbed the essence of the demonic swords. When you did, you not only absorbed the essence of the swords, but the evil pieces as well. Because your master is someone who carries the power of destruction. And because of that, the evil pieces you have carries a bit of essence that resembles the power of destruction. Drake explained, making Issei and Crom nod. I see then. So we need to learn on how to master this new power as well. Issei said, making Crom nod. Yes, speaking of your training. What do you want to do? For you to master your new demonic powers and dragon powers will take a very long time. Crom said, making Issei think. He has point. Training would definitely take a lot of time. But before Issei could say something, a female seductive voice made itself known. Perhaps I could be of assistance. The voice said, making both Issei and Crom look at the door of the mansion. By the door was standing a woman with beauty that puts Rias and Akeno to shame. She had pale skin with matching white hair and crimson red colored eyes. She was wearing a very revealing outfit that emphasizes her massive breast. If it wasn't for the fact he was less trusting of others, Issei would have a nosebleed by now. Who are you? Issei said and pointed his new sword at the woman. Crom surprisingly kept quiet. Now you are curious about little old me? Very well, the Red Dragon Emperor, son of the strongest evil dragon and descendant of Sparta. I am Lucina, the queen of the succubus. Lucina said with an elegant bow, making her breast jiggle. Why are you here? Issei asked, still not trusting the woman in front of him. Simply, I wish to make a deal with you that would solve both of our problems. Lucina said, making Issei narrow his eyes, but surprisingly Crom walked forwards. What is it, Lucina? He asks in a calm tone. Now Crom, you do remember me. It has been 640 years we last saw each other. Lucina said in a teasing voice and gave the evil dragon a wink. Cut to the chase, he ordered, raising his aura a bit, making the succubus slightly nervous. Very well. The deal implies that I help with your training problem, but I want something in return. Lucina said in a surprisingly serious voice. What is it? Issei asks, making Lucina giggle. For you to become my master, Issei Sparta. Lucina said, making Issei shocked. Your what? Issei asks, but Crom decided to answer. What she means, she wants a master and servant contract. In that contract, the succubus or servant isn't allowed to engage in sexual intercourse with any other man. The contract also bonds the soul of the master and servant together for the rest of their lives, or at least until the human dies. Crom explains, making Issei widen. Right, you are Crom Cruch. You have been studying. Lucina teased, making the evil dragon groan. And what? Do you have the solution without training problem? Crom asks, making Lucina nod. Indeed. I can use my magic to make a time manipulation barrier, but I need your help to increase the amount of time manipulated. Lucina revealed, making both quiet. She did provide it with a solution, but both knew there was a catch. What is the catch? Becoming your master seems too easy, so there must be something else. Issei said, making Lucina look at him and giggle. My how perceptive you are. Indeed, the only catch, what we need to have hex every day along that you give me children later in the future to save my race. Lucina revealed, making Issei confused. Save your race? Issei asks. There are two types of hex demon races. One who are related to the devils and one that aren't. The hex demons that aren't part of the devil faction lost almost everyone in the Great War, with Lucina being a lucky survivor. Crom explained, making Issei nod. Now he understood what she meant with save my race. There was a 10-minute debate about Crom, Issei and Lucina, but eventually Lucina was able to convince to take the deal. And now Issei had just finished the master and servant ritual, and Lucina became Issei's servant. Now that is done, let's create the barrier. Crom said with a grin and looked back at his son and still saw the sword in his right hand. By the way, are you planning to name that sword? Issei looked at the sword and thought about a cool name, but he couldn't come up with any. But he suddenly remembered all what has happened to him. I will call him Revelation. Issei's bio name, Issei Haidu adoptive name, Issei Sparta birth name, Issei Sparta Haidu full name, age 17, race Dragon Devil hybrid, formerly Devil Dragon Human hybrid, relatives Sparta, great-grandfather Eva, great-grandmother Dante Sparta, grandfather Virgil Sparta, granduncle Nero Sparta. Id quid Nero is to Issei, Trish, grandmother Crom Cruch, father Amelia Sparta, mother Or Haidu, adoptive father Mickey Haidu, adoptive mother Lucina, servant appearance. Previously Issei had the appearance of a high school student with chocolate brown short hair and dark brown eyes. It was later revealed that when his powers were sealed, resulting in his true appearance being changed. In the church in chapter 1 and 2, the seal on Issei's powers were slightly damaged thanks to the extreme anger he felt and the help of the boosted gear. Because of that, Issei's eyes changed into a crimson red with slits and black sclera. This was a combination of his demonic and draconic heritage. After Issei's powers were unsealed and after he absorbed the demonic swords rebellion, Yamato and Sparta, and the demonic energy of the 8 pawn pieces, Issei's appearance changed a bit. In his human form, Issei's hair turned white and his eyes are crimson red after the unsealing of his powers. This is the hair color that is very common in the Sparta bloodline. All members who carries the blood of Sparta have white hair. Sparta, Dante, Virgil, Nero and Amelia. In his devil form, Issei appearance changes that into a true devil. In his true dragon form, Issei appearance changes into a black western dragon with 4 massive dragon wings. His eyes stays crimson red, and his scales are raven black with a hint of red. Issei possesses a third form that is his true dragon devil form, in which he has 6 wings, dragon wings that have the same demonic pattern as his true devil form. Issei's face stays that of a human with his eyes changing into slits with a black sclera. Issei gains 2 black horns on each side of his head and his white hair turns midnight black. Personality. Before the events that took place in the church, Issei was an openly perverted person along with his friends Motohama and Mitsuda. They were part of the perverted trio with Issei as their so-called leader. After Issei's seals were broken and after his 2 months training, which was converted into 2 years thanks to time manipulation barriers, Issei's personality changed a lot. He became less openly perverted but still has some perverted tendencies, but he can control his urges. Issei became a more calm and observant individual. He prefers to listen and observe before he takes action. Crom said that this is more a personality trait of Dante's older twin brother Virgil, who was more calmer than Dante. Issei does possess a cocky and playful side. He does like to show off a bit and throw jabs insults at his enemies. Issei can sometimes be very angry and malicious. He can also show a very merciless side when fighting and brutally beat up his opponents. Background history. Issei was born from 2 very powerful individuals. His father is the strongest evil dragon who is on par with a heavenly dragon. His mother is the great-granddaughter of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. Upon Issei's birth, Emilia became very ill and died in less than a week after his birth. But before she died, she and Crom Cruach have decided to seal Issei's power and agree to let him live a normal human life and join the supernatural after he graduated high school. This resulted in his hair and eyes turning brown. Before Emilia died, she wrote a letter that would explain everything what happened upon his birth and the information on how to unseal his powers. This letter was kept by Crom Cruach, who was watching Issei grow up in the Haidu family for a long time but decided to leave him alone when he attended high school. Crom somehow didn't know that the school Issei attended was the school where 2 devil households were attending. In his second year, Issei was asked by a girl called Yuma Mono. But it was later revealed she was a fallen angel named Raynare that was sent killed him because he possessed a potentially dangerous sacred gear. When Raynare stabbed Issei in the gut, a magic circle appeared and Ria's Gremory came out of it and she used her evil pawn pieces to reincarnate him into a devil. But in Issei's case, taking the last part of his humanity. Later was several times attacked by other fallen angels and met a nun named Asia Argento, which she became Issei's first female friend, not counting Arena, because Issei thought that she was a boy. After the last attack, which was Raynare abducting Asia when she and Issei were having their play date, Issei decided to raid the church along with Kiba and Kaneko. They were able to defeat the fallen angel Raynare and all the exorcists present there, but weren't capable of saving Asia. At the last moment before she was about to die, Raynare exposes the truth about Issei's reincarnation, resulting in Issei anger and despair being too much and the seal on his powers being damaged. He later attacked all the people there, defeating the Gremory peerage alone and torturing Raynare along with ripping off her wings. Issei decided to spare Raynare knowing that she doesn't have a place to go and probably dies sooner or later. Issei later took the body of Asia and flew out of the church. He flew aimlessly without a destination in mind. Later he landed in front of a cave and entered. He was about to bury Asia's body, but before he could, the sound of someone entering the cave we heard. He turned around and saw the man named Crom Cruach standing there. Not long after, he revealed that he is Issei's biological father. After the small conversation, Issei and Crom Cruach buried Asia's and later spoke about the truth about Issei's birth. Crom handed Issei the letter Emilia wrote before she died. After Issei read the letter of his mother, he stood up and declared to unseal his powers with his father agreeing. When they arrived at the home of the Sparta family, Issei founded the grave of his mother in the garden, along with the graves of his ancestors. Issei was very sad to see his supposed family dead and made a promise to protect his family, even if he needs to die protecting them. After a couple of minutes of mourning, Issei walked into the house of the Sparta family and founded the 3 demonic swords Yamato, Sparta and a shattered rebellion, laying inside the living room in front of the portrait of Sparta human form, Eva, Dante and Virgil. Issei soon realized what to do and used the same method his grandfather Dante used to unlock his true devil form by stabbing the rebellion in his chest while holding on to the Sparta, but Issei also held on the Yamato. This resulted in Issei absorbing the 3 demonic swords and unlocking his true devil form, which happened to look identical to his grandfather Dante, with a darker color pattern. When Issei deactivated his devil form, it appeared that Issei's hair color had changed into white. The same hair colored as his mother and parents. But that wasn't the only thing they discovered. It also appeared Issei didn't only absorb the power of the 3 demonic swords, but as well the demonic energy of the pawn pieces inside of him. This was confirmed when Issei was able to summon sphere of destructive demonic energy. Afterwards Issei and Crom discussed what to do next and came to a conclusion that training Issei and his unsealed powers would take too long. Right on cue a succubus named Lucina appeared and offered a solution. Both Issei and Crom didn't trust the succubus at first, but did listen to her offer. She offered to create a time manipulation barrier so Issei could train his new powers without wasting too much time. Both Issei and Crom had to admit it was the best solution, but after asking what the price was. Lucina asked that she wanted Issei to become her contract master and make a child in the future to save the succubus race. Issei also had to have sex with Lucina daily to satisfy her succubus urges. Issei and Crom didn't agree with her first, but after a lot of talking, Lucina was able to convince Issei and Crom. After forming the contract, Crom and Lucina started to create the time manipulation barrier and started Issei's training. It took 2 years for Issei to master his new powers, skills and become a master at using weapons, but with the help of the time manipulation barrier. 2 years were actually 2 months in reality. After the training was over, Issei returned back to Kuo. And that is the end of the prologue of the story. Powers and abilities, immense demonic power. As a devil of the Sparta family who was an insanely powerful devil, Issei possesses an immense amount of demonic power, far more powerful than any normal high-ranking devil. His demonic power rivals that of the Lucifer clan, who had the strongest demonic power simply by birth. Power of destruction. After absorbing the 3 demonic swords and the EV pieces inside of his body, Issei gained the ability to use the power of destruction. Issei was able to master the power of destruction because the method to manipulate it was very similar as to manipulate the element of fire. Immense strength. Issei possesses an insane amount of physical strength. Immense speed. Issei possesses an insane amount of speed after training with his father. Immense durability. After his powers were unsealed, Issei's body started to become more sturdy and capable of taking powerful hits. High speed regeneration. After his powers were unsealed, Issei gained a very high regeneration ability that is able to heal wounds and severed limbs in seconds. This healing ability is actually superior than the healing ability of the Phoenix clan because Issei doesn't need to rely on his magic reserves for his regeneration to work. Immense stamina. After his training, Issei gained a great amount of stamina after his training, stating he can hold his balance breaker scale mail for around a full month. Higher generation and manipulation. Issei can generate powerful flames from his body and manipulate them. This was actually an ability he gained from Drake, whose essence was also absorbed when the seal was broken. Higher breath. As any dragon, Issei gained the ability to breathe an immense powerful flame. Black lighting. Issei has the ability to generate an immense powerful black lighting. The black lighting Issei can generate is capable of damaging gods and other dragons, even killing them. Issei inherit this ability from his father. Shadow and darkness manipulation. It was later discovered that Issei is capable of manipulating shadow and darkness. This was also an inherent ability of his father. Master hand-to-hand combatant. Issei learned how to fight with only his fists thanks to his father Crom Cruch. Master sword wielder. Issei is a master sword wielder thanks through his training with Lucina. Master spear wielder. Issei is a master spear wielder after his training. Master scythe wielder. Issei is a master at using a scythe. Magic talent. Issei is a very talented at using magic. This was confirmed by Lucina, who said that Issei mastered the magic she taught him in a very short time. Shape-shifting. Issei can change his appearance into 4 forms. His human form, his true devil form, his true dragon form and lastly his dragon devil form he mastered in his training. Master survivalist. Issei learned on how to survive in the wild and hunt for animals. Stealth expert. Issei is an expert of hiding his presence. Equipment. Boosted gear. Issei's sacred gear is the one of the 13 Longinus created by Elohim, or God of the Bible. Issei mastered many on how to use the boosted gear effectively. He also mastered on how to use the balance breaker and even learning on how to control the Juggernaut drive. Issei even created a new form that was supposed to surpass the raw power and abilities of the Juggernaut drive. Revelation. Issei's new sword he gained after absorbing all the 3 demonic swords. The sword is a demonic and draconic in nature and to be said to be the strongest demon sword currently in existence. Issei can also use his other abilities to enhance his sword and he can summon it freely on will. Revelation sword form, Revelation katana form, Revelation spear form, Revelation scythe form, Revelation shield form, Issei's peerage, the world. Issei Sparta Haidu, judgment. Esdeath Lucifuge, the sun. Gilgamesh female, the moon. Lucina, the star. Jean Dark DXD, the tower. Albedo, the devil. Valerie Lucifer, temperance. Karumi Takasaki, death. Akame, the hanged man. Kurum, justice. Erika Blandelli, wheel of fortune. Kuroka, the hermit. Kateria Leviathan, strength. Mordred, the chariot. Jean Alter, the lovers. Irina and Zenobia, the hierophant. Scathach, the emperor. Saber Alter, the empress. Tiamat, the High Priestess. Chelsea, the Magician. Lieselotte Sherlock, the Fool. Lucretia. Chapter 5. Going back to school. Kuo Academy right after the church events. Ria's Gremory was currently seen in the Occult Research Club. She was sitting on her chair by her desk. Her peerage were currently recovering from the beatdown they received from their pawn. Ria's was reflecting what she had done. Everything went smoothly, but then that fallen angel had to ruin it with revealing the truth about his reincarnation. Yes, she used her influence to get Issei in her peerage, and seeing how easy it was to manipulate him, it was honestly child's play. But there is something else that was bugging her. When Raynare exposed her about Issei's reincarnation, he suddenly released an immense amount of power and easily took down her peerage, according to Kaneko, who was the only one fortunately spared from Issei's wrath. She didn't understood how Issei unleashed such amount of power. He wasn't a devil for barely a week and he easily unleashed more power than herself. Did Issei has a hidden lineage? No, he was a weak perverted human who was lucky to have a sacred gear. Nothing more. But what about now? Did he go astray? Should she call her brother about this? No, Issei will come back sooner or later. He won't survive it out there. He will just come back to her and beg to take her in again. Ria's grew an arrogant smile. Yes, everything will go as planned. Knock knock knock. The sound of someone knocking on my door brought me out of my thoughts. I opened the door and my eyes widened and before I knew it my vision went black. 2 months later Issei POV. I was slowly walking through the streets of Kuo. The last 2 months or 2 years for me were a literal hell. Who knew my father could be a bucking sadist and a drill sergeant? But all of that pay off and I am someone completely new. I'm not the weak pervert anymore. Well, I am still a pervert, but I learned to control my urges and when I need a stress relief my new servant Lucina will gladly help me out. My training forced me to push my physical and mental strength to the absolute limit. Dad forced me to become strong and learn how to fight and Lucina helped me with all magic related things and helped me to get over my fears. So yeah, everything went great and I felt like a new man. The old Issei Haidu was gone and the new Issei Sparta Haidu was born. I decided to honor my lineage to take the name of my ancestor Sparta and my dragon title as the Crimson Crescent Dragon. And honor my father and the dragon inside of me. So yeah, and the best thing of all, I am not a servant of that red-haired bitch anymore. How it happened was when I absorbed the 3 demonic swords and the demonic essence of the evil pieces, I not only gained a baddest new weapon and unlocked my true devil powers. All the demonic essence from the pieces were absorbed as well, resulting in me obtaining the power of destruction and that the evil pieces were completely drained from magic. Because of that, Crom and Lucina were able to safely remove the evil pieces without damaging my body or soul. So yeah, I am free Motherbikers. So yeah, now I am going back to school. Why I decided to return is because I am fulfilling my mother's request at graduating high school. When I am done I don't know what I will do. So yeah, my dad told me that he made sure that the devils won't place me on their wanted stray devil list. How he did it is beyond me. And he altered the minds of my parents. So they think I went on a 2 months training camp. Now I was almost at school. Lucina said that she had a surprise for me at school, so I was curious what that is. But I can guess that it involves bucking her silly. When I passed the gates of the school every student erection went to me. Girls started blushing while boys were giving stares of jealousy. Honestly, I could get used to living a life like this. With my senses I overheard some of their conversations. Is that a new guy? He is so hot. A female student whispered to another. I think so, gosh, his looks makes Kiba-san look like an amateur. Another whispered, making Issei grin. It appears he is rising in popularity very quickly. I made my way to class and sighed. This is it, huh? Shrugging the feeling of discomfort away. I knocked on the door because I was 20 minutes late. The door was soon opened by none other than my servant Lucina. Hao was wearing a suit that showed a lot of cleavage. Her beautiful white hair tied into a low ponytail and she wore glasses making her crimson red pinkish eyes look even more alluring. You must be Issei Haidu, correct? She asks, trying to act like she doesn't know me. I simply nodded. Good, but 20 minutes late after your return. Not a greatest impression, Mr. Haidu, so please stay after class. She said with a seductive voice, making Issei nod. She let Issei in and the whole class was confused at the sudden entry of the student. Issei ignored the strange looks and walked to his desk and sat on his chair. The whole class was silent and didn't know what to say. For the next 2 hours were boring as hell, but luckily Lucina made sure to make it interesting by doing some hexy poses but made sure only Issei could see it. When the bell rang signaling that it was lunchtime, everyone left the classroom to go to the cafeteria. Some wanted to stay, but Lucina used some magic to get them to leave. So now Issei and his teacher were all alone in an empty classroom. Nice surprise, Lucina ch. Issei wanted to say something, but some tendrils from the shadows grabbed him and binded him to the wall of the classroom. Issei was slightly shocked but was more amused at the actions of his servant. Lucina slowly walked over to her master and slowly undressed herself. revealing her massive bust that only he and he alone can enjoy. Mr. Haidu, I specially prepared a nice welcoming gift for you, but you have the gall to come late for your first day back at school. This calls for some extreme punishment. She said in a scolding but still seductive manner. She leaned on my body and kissed me on the mouth. It was a fierce battle for dominance, and boy Issei found this harder than having a spar with his father. After 2 minutes of an intense makeout session they separated. Lucina placed herself on top of Issei's crotch, making the Red Dragon Emperor slowly growl from the teasing. My Mr. Haidu, such a talented student you are, she whispered into my ear, making my hair on my back stand straight. But before we could continue further, a knock on the door caught both of our attention. Lucina snapped her fingers, resulting in the shadow tendrils disappearing, and she quickly made herself look presentable. Come in. Lucina said loud enough so the student who was knocking on her door could hear it. And not to my surprise it was Kiba. The wannabe knight of the Gremory cult. Ah, Kiba-kun, what can I help you with? Lucina asks. She could sense Issei anger rising and wishes that a bloodbath wouldn't happen so soon. Ah, my apologies for interrupting something, Lucina-sensei. But the president of the Occult Research Club requests Issei presence. Kiba said in a friendly manner. Issei honestly had the urge to punch straight in the face. What does the red-haired bitch wants with me? I asked, not caring for my rude way of asking. Lucina didn't even bother with lecturing Issei because she also disliked Ria's Gremory. She had too much pride and arrogance while being weak. Kiba seemed to be taken off guard by the rude remark and seemed more surprised, a teacher doing nothing about it. Answer me, knight, what does the red-haired bitch want from me? Issei asks menacingly, making the knight gulp his saliva. But before Issei could rip Kiba to shreds, Lucina talked though her master mentally. Master, please let him talk and go to the Occult Research Club. You can make your point there and finally be done with the devils. Lucina suggested, making Issei sigh. She made a good point. Fine, but you are coming with me. Issei said, annoyed back to the succubus queen, who giggled back. As you wish, master. She said and ended the mental conversation. Issei looked back at Kiba, who was still kinda nervous. The president wishes to speak with you because of your absence for the last 2 months. Kiba said, making Issei sigh and nod. Very well. Lead the way. Issei said, making Kiba nod, but before either he or I said could leave the room, Lucina spoke. I think I will go as well, to make sure nothing bad will happen. Lucina said, suddenly catching Kiba off guard. I don't think the president would like that. Kiba tried to convince the teacher, making Lucina smile a bit creepily. Ow, but I am a teacher and it is my job to make sure that nothing bad will happen to my students. So I will come, end of discussion. Lucina said in a slight threatening tone, making Kiba nod. All 3 student and teacher walked towards the Occult Research Club. Kiba was leading them with Issei and Lucina behind him. After 5 minutes of walking they made it to the orc and Kiba opened the door. They walked inside the room and Issei was suddenly hit with several different smells. He smelled 2 fallen angels, a yokai and some other devils. He felt something sealed away a room a high farther away from him, but he ignored it. They made it to the room where the red-haired bitch and her peerage are. Kiba opened the door widely, allowing Issei and Lucina inside. Riaz was sitting on her chair as usual, looking ever more arrogant than before, Akeno standing behind her like a dog on a leash. Kaneko was sitting on one of the couches eating a sweet but almost dropped it when she sensed Issei and Lucina. And to Issei's surprise, raynare was there sitting on the other couch looking horrified when she saw Issei. Kiba walked towards the window and took out a book and started reading it. Riaz looked at her former pawn and smiled brightly, but her smile dropped when she saw Lucina standing there very close to Issei. Kiba, I thought I asked for only Issei to be here. Why did Miss Lucina come as well? Riaz asked in annoyance, but before the wannabe knight could answer, Issei answered instead. Let's cut the crap with bullshit and get this over with. She is here because I am her contract master, and before you ask, she is a succubus. The queen of the succubus, actually. And why am I here is to send a message and make things clear. Issei said in an annoyed tone and took out 8 grey pawn pieces out of his pocket. All of the pawn pieces had cracks in them and looked to be completely drained of power. Issei threw the pieces at Ria's desk and her eyes widened when she saw them. As you can see, those were my pawn pieces and they aren't inside my body anymore. If you don't understand, what I am saying is that I am not part of your peerage anymore. Now with that out of the way, we take our leave. Issei said and started to walk away with Lucina behind him. Both left the Occult Research Club and left a shell-shocked peerage behind. Riaz and the other couldn't believe what they just witnessed and what more. Riaz had a plan to use Issei to help with her marriage, and with him gone, Riaz knew she was screwed. Chapter 6. Stupid drama. Issei, POV. After I officially revealed that I left the peerage and won't be a slave to the Gremory household, I decided to ditch school and go home. Of course Lucina couldn't come with me because he is a teacher and that kinda disappointed me, but she let me know if something is gonna happen or if the devils get any stupid idea. If they do, I will personally end what I started in the church, and I don't care if I need to fight the 2 super devils. I finally made it home and sensed that my parents aren't home. But my dragon nose told me that they weren't home for a long time. This made me worried and barged in the house, breaking the door. Crash, not caring if the neighbors saw me, literally forced my door open just with pushing it. I sniffed the inside of my house and smiled that my parents' scent is completely gone and that they have been for more than a few weeks. I learned this with the help of my father, who trained me into mastering my senses, and thanks Sparta for that. But my thoughts went into possible possibilities. What could have happened? Did the devils get them? If they did, there will be hell to pay. The thoughts of the devils trying to use me by keeping my parents hostage was enough to make me raise my aura to a dangerous level, but luckily the dragon inside of me brought me out of my thoughts before I could go on a rampage. Partner, calm down, I don't think that the devils were behind this. Drag mighty voice brought me out of my thoughts and look at my left hand. What do you mean, Drag? I asked the heavenly dragon inside of me and calmed down a bit, but my aura was still around me, almost destroying the whole house. Like I just said, I don't think the devils were behind this. I don't smell the stench of a devil around the house, and trust me, a stench of a devil stays around for years. So I don't think that the devils were behind this. Drag informed his host, making Issei exhale a breath of relief. Glad those assholes didn't take his parents. But it raises the question, who had done it? But who could have done this? I asked the dragon, but I wasn't Drag who answered. Issei quickly sensed someone in the shadows and was barely able to block a powerful punch from the attacker. The punch caused the whole building to shake and all the items on the wall fell on the ground and broke. Issei looked at the attacker with his glaring eyes, but he was shocked when he saw the attacker and grinned a moment later. The attacker came into the form of his biological father, Crom Crouch, who also has a grin on his face. But you haven't been slacked off, kid. Crom complimented Issei and withdrew his fist. Of course I haven't. I am still training to becoming stronger than you. Issei said confidently, making Crom grin. Good to hear that. Crom said and walked over to the shattered table and took a banana that was sitting on the floor and peeled it. May I ask why you are here, and do you know what happened to my adoptive parents? Issei asks, making Crom look at him and shrugged his shoulders. I sense that you became furious and came to see why. And about your parents, I made them go on a trip in Europe. So the devils won't do anything with them. Crom said, making Issei shocked. Wait, when did you do that? Issei asks in shock. After the first day of training. You told me that you were worried that your adoptive parents may be in danger because of the devils. So I made sure they are safe and that you didn't have to worry. But I kinda forgot it, so yeah, my bad for making you worried. Crom said while eating his banana, making Issei and Drag sweat drop at the strongest evil dragon. At least I know they are safe. But why Europe? Issei asks and used his magic to fix the house. Most of Europe is angels' territory. So the devils won't go on a hunt for your parents without causing a drama with the angels. Crom said and finished his banana and used his fire breath to burn the banana peel. I see, I honestly hate drama. Issei said and just finished fixing the house and sat on the couch. Trust me, son, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until the devils hear about your lineage or the whole supernatural. If things get worse, I just say that Drag made me a dragon and that I was born a human-demon hybrid. Issei said, making Crom nod. Yeah, that is for the best, and if the devils or any other faction is planning to mess with you, give me a call and I will let them know why I am the most powerful evil dragon. Crom said menacingly, making Issei grin. Sure. But don't think I will let you have all the fun. Issei said fearlessly, making Crom grin. Good, before I need to go, I need to tell you something. Crom said in serious tone. What is it? Issei said. At the same that I made your parents go on the trip to Europe. Decided to manipulate the memories of the Grimoire peerage and made them forget that you are the Red Dragon Emperor. Crom revealed, making Issei shocked. What? Issei yelled out, making Crom scratch the back of his head. Yeah, I decided that way, so you won't attract too much attention to yourself. Crom said awkwardly. I see, thanks I guess. Issei said, not knowing what to say. Now that I have told you everything, I need to go. See ya, son. Crom said and created a dragon's gate and teleported away. Yes, see ya. Issei said goodbye and sighed. That was a lot to take in, but he was grateful that his father thought so far ahead. But his thoughts were disrupted by his stomach making sounds. He hasn't eaten lunch yet, so he ordered an extra large pepperoni pizza and a massive Coke. When the pizza and the Coke arrived, Issei happily dug in and ate the whole thing in less than 15 minutes. Ah, that hit the spot. Issei said happily and stretched his arms. He decided to take a quick nap, but suddenly a magic circle appeared by his ear. Issei-sama. The voice of his succubus servant was heard. Lucina-chan. What is the problem? Issei asks, tired. Can you come here? I have two high-ranking devils that wishes to speak with you. Lucina asked, making Issei groan at the word devils. Who are they? Issei asks, making Lucina silent for a moment. The devil kings Ajuka Beelzebub and the strongest queen Graphia Lucifuge. Lucina revealed, making Issei shocked. What? He yelled. You heard me correct, master. They requested your presence. Lucina said, making Issei think. Very well, I am on my way. Issei said and closed the magic circle and groaned in annoyance. Fuck me, Issei yelled out, making Drake chuckle in amusement. Issei noticed the heavenly dragon chuckling at his host's suffering. Stupid lizard. Issei muttered. I heard the Drake said, annoyed at being called a lizard. Don't buck you too. Issei said and walked out of his house and walked back to school. This is gonna be doozy. Issei whispered to himself and walked back to school. After a 5-minute walk, Issei returned to school and immediately sensed several other auras in the occult research club, including Lucina. Issei sighed to himself and walked over to the occult research club and didn't bother to knock on the door and barged in. The looks of confusing and shock from the other devils present were clear, but his attention went immediately to the green-haired man sitting on normally the red-haired bitch chair. Behind him was a silver-haired maid with a French maid outfit. Standing behind the green-haired man with a stoic expression on her face. You must be Issei Haidu, correct? The man asks. Issei knew that the man was Ajuka Beelzebub. A man he shouldn't take lightly. The man was in the top 10 strongest in the world. This made Issei hungry for a battle. He wanted to fight against another being who is in the top 10 strongest who isn't his father. Indeed I am. Issei said, not interested, and his attention shifted towards Lucina, who was sitting on the couch. The other devils, including the red-haired bitch, were standing by the wall. I see, let me introduce myself. I am Ajuka Beelzebub, formerly known as Ajuka Astereth, and this is Graphia Lucifuge, the queen of my best friend and fellow devil king Surzich's Lucifer. Ajuka introduced himself in a stoic voice. Issei had to admit that Ajuka gave the same impression of his granduncle Virgil, who was also mostly stoic and all serious. It is a pleasure to meet you, Issei Haidu. Graphia introduced herself, but Issei didn't care and ignored her. What business do you have with me? Issei asks, but knew why they came here. We came here to speak about something that hasn't been done before. The removal of the evil piece. Ajuka said, making Issei roll his eyes. I am not here for a science lesson, cut to the chase, so we don't have to bother each other again. Issei said, annoyed. The reply shocked the Gremory peerage. Graphia kept a stoic face, but her eyes narrowed a tiny bit. Ajuka himself was more amused. Issei, show some respect to the Devil King, Riaz yelled out. But Ajuka raised his hand to quiet Riaz, but Issei wasn't having any of that. You shut up, bitch. I am not here for your bucking lectures. Issei said, annoyed with venom in his voice. Issei didn't realize it, but he released a fraction of his aura, making the Gremory peerage cringe at the power. Graphia herself was also on guard. Sensing the aura of Issei. She could tell that he was powerful. But she didn't know how powerful. Ajuka himself was now in shock. Why? He recognized that aura and couldn't believe it that he ever sensed it again after so long. Sparta. The only thought that was coursing through his mind. Wait, Sparta died so long ago. But what about Dante and Virgil? But they both died fighting each other in the underworld. Maybe Nero? No, he married a human, and that would make the child too low of demonic power. Maybe he has one of the 3 demonic swords. I need to analyze this further. Ajuka said mentally to himself and was now more interested in this Issei Haidu. Issei took a deep breath and calmed himself. He looked back at the Devil King, who had an analyzing looking expression on his face. So what do you wish to talk about? Issei asks. The Devil King sat straight in the chair and gave a small smile. I have several matters to be discussed, but I think it is best that we discuss them privately. Ajuka said, making Issei raise an eyebrow. May I ask why? Issei asks. Ajuka gave a small amused smile. I can tell that you are a man of mystery, Issei Haidu, and I think I have a clue on what one of those mysteries may be. Ajuka said, giving the hint to Issei, who caught on what he meant. I see, very well, let's talk this more in private. Issei said, and Ajuka created a magic circle, and Issei walked over to him, and before he and Ajuka disappeared, he turned to Lucina. You can go home. This won't take too long. Issei said to the succubus, who pouted. HMPH, no fair. Lucina pouted and saw her master and the Devil King disappear. The other devils looked at Lucina and stayed silent. Lucina turned to the silver-haired maid and gave an evil smirk. How is 3-inch Setches doing? Dimensional gap. Issei and Ajuka teleported themselves to a makeshift arena in the dimensional gap. Issei looked around and wasn't really surprised to see the weird-looking sky of the dimensional gap. He used revelation several times to get in the dimensional gap and used it often for training with his father. He saw the green-haired Devil King walking towards the opposite side of the arena, and when he stood in place, he turned around to face Issei. A powerful green aura surrounded him. Issei Haidu, I desire to fight you to confirm a theory. Ajuka said and fired a powerful demonic sphere at Issei, who was prepared and summoned revelation and blocked the attack, sending it to the massive rock monument, causing it to explode and leave nothing behind. Issei looked back at the super devil and grinned. Then very well, let's start this experiment. Issei said and took a stance and was ready to fight. The battle between the super devil and the descendant of Sparta will soon commence. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.